Coming up on this week's GCN Racing News Show, where are the big stars of cycling competing for the first time in 2022? We'll be telling you where you can see your favourite riders for the first time this year. We've also got the Australian Road National Championships, the UCI Cyclo-cross World Cup from Flamanville in France, and another new kit for you to vote on too. First up though, with the 2022 road season now just less than 10 days away, we thought we'd let you know who is starting their season where. And let's start with the world champion. Just like last year, Julian Alaphilippe will commence his season on home soil at the Tour de la Provence, a race in which he finished runner-up to Ivan Ramiro Sosa in 2021 with Egan Bernal in third place. Sosa's participation this year is uncertain as Movistar haven't announced their team for that race, but Egan Bernal will be back and that's his first race of the season. Also there competing for the first time this year will be Tour of Flanders winner Kasper Asgreen, who'll be building up his form towards this year's cobbled classics. The route for this year's race has just been announced: a prologue, a sprint stage, a hilly stage, and then a mountaintop finish on the Montagne de l'Eure on the fourth and final stage. Now that is a climb that some of you may remember from Paris-Nice because it was used there in 2013 and 2009. Nairo Quintana, Philippe Gilbert and Alexei Lutsenko are also expected to be on the start line of Provence, and I've no doubt other big names will be added soon. The race runs from the 10th of February and it's available in all GCN Plus territories live and on demand. Before the Tour de la Provence though, it's the Vuelta a la Comunidad Valenciana in Spain, a 5-day stage race that begins on the 2nd of February, so just over 2 weeks' time. With the cancellation of the Vuelta a San Juan in Argentina, it will be Valenciana where we'll first get to see Remco Evenepoel pin on a number in 2022. It'll be his debut at that particular race, but he'll be joined by teammate Fabio Jakobsen, who won a stage there in 2020. And it would take a brave person to bet against him winning another one this time around, as the best lead-out man in the world, Michael Mørkøv, will be at his side. Well, mainly in front of him, but you know what I mean. Anyway, also set to start their seasons at that race are Vincenzo Nibali, who'll be back in Astana colours for the first time in a few years, Jakob Fuglsang, who'll debut for Israel Premier Tech, plus Jack Haig and Matti Mohoric for Bahrain Victorious, whilst the headline names for UAE Team Emirates are Juan Ayuso and Marc Soler. However, rumours are suggesting that Tadej Pogačar may well choose Valenciana as his first race of the year, potentially as preparation for the UAE Tour, which comes at the end of the month. Valenciana is an event in which he won when he last competed there in 2020, and again, we have rights to the race in all GCN Plus territories. So all subscribers will be able to watch live on demand or short highlights if you so wish. Alejandro Valverde and Alexander Kristoff will also be at that Spanish race, but they are set to race before that at the Challenge Mallorca. Now that is a set of 5 one-day races run off on consecutive days starting on the 26th of January, 10 days from now, in which riders can dip in and out as they wish. Pascal Ackermann, Max Schachmann and Benoit Cosnefroy also look like they'll be riding there too. Now, unfortunately, there is no live coverage of those races available anywhere, but we will have daily 20-minute highlights for you on GCN Plus, which will get uploaded just as soon as we possibly can after each stage. So what about Jumbo-Visma's star riders? Well, like last year, Primož Roglic has chosen not to rush back into racing, and so he follows a similar programme to 2021. Paris-Nice at the start of March is his first race, where he'll go head-to-head with Egan Bernal, amongst others. After that, he'll go to Milan-San Remo, the Tour of the Basque Country at Flèche-Wallonne, Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and then nothing until the Tour de France in July. His teammate Wout van Aert will begin his season with a bang at Omloop Het Nieuwsblad on the last Saturday of February. Now, I would normally discount anybody from having any hope of winning that race without any warm-up races beforehand, but then this is Wout van Aert we're talking about, so anything is possible. He will follow that up with Paris-Nice, San Remo, Ghent-Wevelgem, Tour of Flanders, Amstel Gold Race, Paris-Roubaix, and then the Tour de France, where he's aiming for the green jersey. All those races will be live on GCN Plus, but there are some more territory restrictions on some of them, so please check if they're available where you are. David Gaudu of Groupama FDJ will be starting the Volta Algarve in Portugal on the 16th of February, as will Brandon McNulty of UAE Team Emirates and Gianni Moscon, now with Team Astana. Now it's likely that a couple of Team Ineos Grenadiers stars will be there too. They're yet to confirm their lineup for that race, but we will see Evenepoel and Jakobsen back in action there, and it's another race that we have secured worldwide rights to. Yours truly will be commentating, but please don't let that put you off. And it's always a very tough and entertaining race, so well worth watching. So what then about Thibaut Pinot? Well, his team, Groupama FDJ, named him as part of their Tour de France roster for this season, which is fantastic news. I think we'd all love to see him back at his best and completely over that back injury that's plagued him for the last couple of seasons. His first race of the year, though, is set to be the Tour des Alpes Maritimes et du Var, a 3-day race starting on the 18th of February. And guess what? It's available live and on demand to all GCN Plus subscribers. Now, talking of riders with a back injury, what about Mathieu van der Poel? Well, nobody really knows at the moment where he'll race again, not even van der Poel himself. It will all depend on when he gets the all clear from his physios. Here's hoping he's back in time to be in good form for the Spring Classics. Meanwhile, Peter Sagan, well, his first race is currently set to be Omloop Het Nieuwsblad at the end of February. However, he was one of the riders who was set to start their seasons at the Vuelta a San Juan in Argentina, and you'd imagine he will replace that with another stage race in early February. Now, for the female stars of the sport, it's much more unclear where they'll start racing this year. The first women's races of the year are here in Europe in Spain, with the one-day Vuelta a la Comunidad Valenciana on the 6th of February, and then the Setmana Valenciana from the 17th to the 20th of February. The World Tour racing kicks off with Strade Bianche in early March, meanwhile. Details of start lists are scarce at the moment, but Trek Segafredo have said that they'll line up at the Setmana Valenciana with Diagnan, Longo Borghini and world champion Elisa Balsamo. Without much choice when it comes to early season stage racing though, you would imagine that most of the stars of the women's peloton want to get in some racing ahead of Het Nieuwsblad and Strade Bianche. So there's a lot to be excited about as we inch ever closer to the first races of the season and our first chance to see the colour of the pro peloton thundering down the road. Let us know in the comments section below which early season race you are most looking forward to watching. Now, there are some riders who've already started their season down under. Last week it was the Australian National Road Championships, which kicked off with the individual time trials. Four-time winner Luke Durbridge had to settle for second place in the men's race behind Rowan Dennis, who himself became a four-time winner by taking the title back this year with over a minute's advantage. That marked his debut in Jumbo-Visma colours, and Dennis had hit the headlines earlier that week by stating that one of the reasons he moved to that team from Ineos was that Ineos were copying a lot of Jumbo-Visma's strategies, so he'd rather be on the team that's being copied rather than the team doing the copying. Not a man who minces his words, really, is he? In the women's time trial, Grace Brown was also debuting in her new colours, those of FDJ Nouvelle Aquitaine Futuroscope, and a successful third outing it was too. She'll be wearing the green and gold skin suit in time trials this year, having beaten Amber Pate by just over a minute. In the criteriums, Ruby Roseman Gannon's form from the recent Bay Crits held strong as she turned 2 silver medals from the last 2 years into gold this time around. There was some sterling work from her Bike Exchange teammate Alex Manley to keep the front group together and lead her out to the sprint. In the men's, we had a solo winner. Cameron Ivory of St George Continental Cycling Team took a fly with just over a lap of the race remaining and found the power somehow to stay clear of what was left of the bunch over the final lap. And then yesterday, it was the road races. In the women's, Nicole Frayne of Rock Salt Livstram attacked an elite front group with just over 3 Ks of the race remaining, holding a slender lead for a long time. Could the group get her back inside the closing kilometre?
She's got the timing right. What a bold move it was from Nicole Frayne. The sprint is on behind, Manley with the lead out. She's followed by pre-race favourite Ruby Roseman Gannon. Pate is still in the mix. That's a battle for the medals though. It's time to celebrate. Fantastic Frayne has her moment of fame. She is the Australian champion.
No, they couldn't. Frayne only started racing on a bike 4 years ago, and now at the age of 29, she's Australian national champion, with her sights firmly set on becoming a full-time pro cyclist. It was close to the double for Grace Brown, who won the sprint for the silver medal behind. But here's what Frayne had to say soon after crossing the finish line victorious.
I'm so happy. Your team, Rock Salt Livstram, did an amazing job today with Emily Herfloss up the road. What was your team plan going into this race?
It was for Emily and I. We were trying to go for it, and then Justin obviously made it really hard up the climb, which riders like Emily and I need that, and we just did such a good job. I'm so happy with us.
And how about Tilly Field? She was also in the breakaway today with Matilda Reynolds. She had an exceptional ride. She's quite a newcomer to the sport. What did you think about her today?
Tilly had a flyer. She did so well. She hasn't been riding for very long, so that's so promising for her.
Great stuff. Hopefully she'll get to ride some bigger races this year because she's clearly very talented indeed. It was a very attritional men's race later on in the day, and one of the big pre-race favourites, Jimmy Whelan, found himself off the front solo with just over 3 laps remaining. Now Whelan has a point to prove this year, having been dropped by EF Education Nippo at the end of last year, and he was doing a blooming good job of proving that point, carving out a 1-minute advantage over the next group on the road. However, he ended up in a game of pursuit with Luke Plapp, riding his first race as a fully fledged pro with Ineos Grenadiers. The 21-year-old paid for his exuberance at this race last year, where he showed his cards a little early, but this time around, he was cool, calm and collected, only burning matches when he needed to. He set off in pursuit of Whelan on the 3rd from last lap, and it was a big old chase from there on. In fact, he didn't catch Whelan until close to the top of the final climb of the race, but then he had enough energy left to fly straight past him and solo to victory. Whelan held on for 2nd for Team Bridgelane with Brendan Johnson in 3rd, but here was Plapp's reaction after that win.
Oh mate, that was pretty fun out there. Just had to play the cards right and really be patient. Felt like being a bit of a dick out there, just sitting on, but played the cards right and waited, and just can't believe it paid off.
Is it a bit of an advantage almost because you were 1 out? I know there are other guys that were 1 out, but was that an advantage for you in some ways today?
Yes and no. It adds, like, I guess you get a lot more nervous when a break goes up and you're like, is someone else going to bring it back or is it going to be up to you? There was one moment where I got real worried and had to shut it down on the climb, but apart from that, I was lucky just to sit on at the back and bide my time and wait until I felt like it was time to go.
I think I'm fairly safe in saying that that lad has a great career in front of him. He only turned 21 on Christmas Day. Moving on to cyclo-cross now though, and it was the penultimate round of the UCI World Cup from Flamanville yesterday. A number of riders were absent from that round as their focus turns towards the World Championships in Fayetteville. One of those was series leader Lucinda Brandt, but despite not racing, she actually secured the overall win in the World Cup yesterday because her closest challenger Denise Betsema also skipped the event. The race itself was dominated by the youngsters with Puck Pieterse and Fem van Empel locked in battle for much of the race. It came right down to the wire, but Van Empel was just a little too strong for her compatriot in the closing stages, securing her 2nd World Cup victory of the season. For Pieterse, it was another case of so near yet so far, but her consistency this season leaves her in 3rd place overall in the World Cup standings. 3rd on the day went to Blanka Vas of Hungary, which meant that the average age of the podium was under 20 years old. Quite remarkable really, and at 53 minutes in duration, an indication, as if we needed it, that the women are more than capable of doing the same duration as the men. And in the men's, series leader and series winner in fact, Eli Iserbyt, did make the journey to compete, and he took full advantage of it. He was clear of the rest by the end of the 3rd lap, after which everybody else was fighting for 2nd place. Iserbyt would cross the line just under a minute in front of Toon Aerts, with Michael van Turenhout in 3rd. Now sticking with cyclo-cross, we recently interviewed one of the most promising young male riders, Pim Ronhaar. He's won 3 big under-23 events this year and also has impressed when racing in the elite category. Now if you'd like to read that article and interview, head over to the GCN app, click on Race TV at the bottom right and then scroll down to GCN Daily. Moving on now though to what's coming up on GCN Plus this week, and there are 2 cyclo-cross races this weekend. On Saturday it's the next round of the X2O Badkammers Trophy from Hammer, and on Sunday it's the final round of this year's World Cup taking place in Hogerheide. Now with a number of riders choosing to skip this round in favour of travelling to the US earlier, it might just open up an opportunity for one of the lesser known names to take a prestigious victory. Before that though, tonight it's the 2nd round of the new ZRL Premier Division Series. Round 1 saw some serious upsets last week, so make sure you watch tonight to see if the favourites can get back on top. Coverage will start at 1900 GMT on the GCN Racing YouTube and Facebook channels. Now on top of the live racing, we've also got a new film out this week, Cycling Heartland's Girona. Now Girona might be little known to anyone outside of the cycling world, but that small city north of Barcelona has become the European capital of cycling over the last 20 years or so. Hundreds of pro riders live there and tens of thousands of keen amateurs visit for their holidays each year. In the film, local resident and professional cyclist Mitch Docker introduces us to his playground of the pros, meeting former and current racers like David Miller, Christian Meyer and Ashland Mormon-Pasio, along with a few locals who've embraced the 2-wheeled invasion. There's also a pretty mad game of wall ball in Girona city centre with Dave Miller and Sam Bewley, amongst others. Here's a sneak peek of the film.
Girona, an ancient city in northern Spain and a playground of the pros. Since the late 90s, professional cyclists and teams have been basing themselves in this beautiful city in Catalonia, Spain, during the racing season. What makes the riding here so good for us pros is the variety. It's a cyclist's dream.
This is where cycling history in Girona starts.
Back in those times, no one rode bikes. Like, local people didn't really ride bikes.
This used to be Lance's front door. This is where Lance Armstrong used to live.
Whoa! And now, I mean, cycling like everywhere has exploded. So everybody's riding bikes.
I think it's just got absolutely everything that that a bike rider's looking for.
Oh, mate, watch out. See you, boys.
There are tons of climbs of all lengths.
It's a climb that kind of keeps it secret, you know. You have to get to the top to appreciate the view.
It's not just for roadies. The gravel and the mountain bike scene is off the hook.
Whoa.
There's always someone to go out training with too. And that's another reason we all gather in Girona, the sense of community. It makes living abroad just that little bit easier. Girona, the playground of the pros, and just a great place to be.
That will be available for all GCN Plus subscribers to watch from tomorrow. Now, in other news, there's a new pathway to the professional peloton, courtesy of the Sarez-Ruby Sauerland team, a team founded in 2016 that has ambitions of moving into the World Tour eventually. And if you're good enough, you could earn yourself a spot on the team through an online 4-part race series on Ruby this February. Final selection is happening at the in-person team camp in March in Girona in Spain. You can find out more details of what's involved and how you can get yourself a spot on the team by heading to sarez.com/Sarez-Ruby Sauerland. We'll put a link to that in the description below to make it easier for you to get there. You can apply wherever you are in the world, but you need to be an aspiring rider of between 18 and 23 years of age. Good luck to all of you who enter that one. On to new kit now, and whilst we're still waiting on the new kit release for EF Education Easy Post, as they'll be known this year, we have got the new Team EF Tibco Silicon Valley Bank women's kit. What do you reckon? I think it looks great, although I am a little bit worried for the commentators this year because it looks like there's going to be a lot of pink in the women's peloton in 2022. I guess we'll have to wait and see how easily distinguishable each team kit is. Now, there were rumours flying around late last season that Egan Bernal was unhappy at Team Ineos Grenadiers and that he was looking to move to another team. Well, I guess the best way to quash such a rumour is to sign a new long-term deal, and that's exactly what he's done. Bernal will be at the team until at least the end of 2026 after signing a new contract. Davide Formolo's early season took a blow last week as he was involved in a high-speed collision with a small wild boar which ran out in front of him on the descent. I think he's got a suspected broken wrist. Luxembourg pro Jempe Drucker has announced his retirement, having failed to find a team for this year. The 35-year-old turned pro all the way back in 2005, taking 2 wins in his career, Ride London in 2015 and a stage of La Vuelta a year later. All the best for what comes next, Jempe. Norwegian team Uno X are continuing their upward trajectory of ambition, saying that they're aiming for the place at the Tour de France this year, which is going to be a tough task given the French world teams that will likely be favoured, but it'd be great to see Uno X get a place. They've been punching well above their weight for the last couple of years and have got some bigger names on their roster for this year. Right, that is all for this week's show, but I'll see you this evening for the Zwift Racing League. Goodbye for now though.